Welcome back to the Worthy Woman podcast with Aston Simmons. I have a beautiful, beautiful queen guest today, the beautiful Kady Gummerson. This is the Empowerment Queen. I cannot wait to introduce you to her and her incredible work. She is an empowerment coach for women as well as a breathwork facilitator, which is super exciting because I love talking about breath and how powerful it is. And she supports women, usually overthinkers, which is a lot of us really, to break free from the doubt, the fears and insecurities that are keeping them small, and stopping them from being the magical, incredible women that they deserve to be. And this is just so in alignment with the Worthy Woman podcast because that is what we're all about. We're all about women remembering that they are worthy, owning that and using their voice and really standing in their power. So I am super excited for this chat. I already have goosebumps. We were talking off air before and there's already so much gold coming through. So really excited. You're going to get so much from this chat. Stick around. We're going to be covering obviously the amazing work that Kady does. We're going to be talking a bit about the good girl, the nice girl, all those stories that we have that really keep us small in ourselves and truly small in our relationships. We were just talking about that, how it has a really negative impact on your relationship and you feel like you can't express your needs. You can't communicate what you want because you've always been the good girl, the nice girl, the one who does what she's told to do, you know, the well-mannered one, like whatever it was for you. For me, it was the nice girl. So I know all about that journey to break free and how empowering it is to be on the other side. So if this is you, if you can relate, stick around because you're going to get some gold to help you move through this and step more into your power. So I'm going to hand you over now to this beautiful queen so that she can introduce herself because she is just so much more than what I've even just shared.
Well, I love what you just shared. Anyway, I was like, oh, this is great. This is me. So thank you for that lovely welcome and thank you for having me. So yeah, I am the Empowerment Queen. I often wear a tiara, not today though.
I love
just
that.
to stay in that energy.
I love that.
Yeah, when you're cleaning the house, you know, when you're having a down day, just get it on, women. Like it just makes you feel good. Not today though. But yeah, exactly what you said. I really do support women that tend to be overthinkers, that tend to be very type A personality, stuck in their thoughts, stuck in their heads, maybe struggle to come into their bodies. And what they usually want most is to feel more grounded and to just feel more carefree. So the work that I do is deep. I'm all about that empowerment, like good energy, of course, but I believe that in order to get there, we have to go and do the deep stuff first. We can't just go, yeah, empowerment, affirmations, stand in your power without really uncovering what those blocks are. So what my work looks like is usually 2 phases: healing and empowering. And they're not just we do this one, we heal and then we empower. It's like a slow layering of the 2. We're always uncovering more of ourselves, then being able to step into our power a bit more, uncovering more, healing more, stepping more. And so it's such a beautiful, complex journey. But yeah, it really lights me up to see a woman, like you just said, maybe she's stuck in that good girl energy, or maybe she's just very suppressed, shaming parts of herself, to really break free from all of the stories she has about herself, all of those doubts, all of those fears, all of those insecurities that keep her settling for less, whether that's in relationship, whether that's in her career, whether that's in the environment she lives in. And yeah, and playing small, just knowing that there's so much more that's out there for her and that she's capable of, but just not stepping into that, not playing all out. So when I see a woman break through that stuff and start to take those steps to use her voice, to truly stand in her power and start creating a life that she really is obsessed with, that is just my life's work. I just love it. So yeah, that is what I do basically.
Full body goosebumps. I absolutely love it. And I loved how you said you do the deep work because I'm a big believer in that as well, that we can't just positive our way through this stuff. You know, that's actually a really
nice.
Yeah. But also it's a negative approach, I think, because I feel like the dark has a purpose just as much as the light. Like, I'm like, welcome all of you in. I think that's what the true power is. How can you welcome and love all of you and move through it and then find the gold? I know that some of the best gold I've found has been in my darkness. So You know, it's like, it's worth going there. And I feel the same in the work that I do. We have to be willing to dig deep. I'm all here for the depth. So super excited to hear you say that. I think it would be awesome to start with these good girl stories. I know we were talking about it just before we went live. And I know for the women that I work with, I'm sure you've seen it a lot. And I experienced it in my life a few years ago where, and, you know, different things at different times. Like when I became a mum, there was stories came then. And, you know, I know there's different stories at different seasons and times. But I know from like my childhood years, that good girl thing really kept me small and kept me stuck and dimming my light for a long time. And I see it in women all the time. You know, they really turn down their radiance and turn down their light. And it's so heartbreaking. It's so absolutely heartbreaking. And yeah, I'd love to talk to that, because I think it's a huge issue that a lot of women struggle with.
Yeah, 100%. So I love that you brought this up, because I did a masterclass on it at the weekend, and there's even more to say on it than that masterclass, let alone this podcast. It's a big topic, but it's just important to just bring it into the light, because
Yes.
I think a lot of people aren't aware. And then the second they hear conversations like this, they're like, oh my God, I relate. I feel so seen. And I feel like, in my opinion, there's two sides to this. There's the good girl and there's the rebel. And I think most women either see themselves as falling into one of two camps. So are you the good girl? Do you relate more to that? Or are you like, oh God, that's not me. I'm definitely the opposite.
Yeah.
And that's what I often find. And that's what I found with myself. But what I always say is, these aren't two separate things. You're not this or that. Like that duality you're speaking about, light and dark, there's always both. And so these are two sides of the same coin. We have the good girl that's conditioned in us, and then the rebel, if you are the woman who associates with that more, there tends to be a point in life, or maybe several points, where being the good girl wasn't getting you what you wanted, what you needed. You couldn't keep up the act. It wasn't serving you. So you said, that's it. And you've turned into, okay, maybe I'm the loud one. Maybe I'm the rebel. Maybe I'm this. Maybe I'm that. But we still have that conditioned good girl, because it's just a widespread thing of how a girl should be. A good little girl should be polite and play by herself and entertain herself and be pretty and be quiet. Women then should not swear. And I have an awfully potty mouth.
Yeah, well,
so
that happens to me as well.
Yeah.
So don't, if you need to swear, like, full permission.
Oh, good.
You know,
Swearing's allowed.
Yeah. When I feel like that's expression, you know, like I never feel offended if someone feels the need to swear. You know, if they're swearing at me, totally different. You know, like if they're calling me names, totally different. But if they just need to swear in their expression, I think I'm all for the expression. I'm like, it just wants to come through us. Why do we have to judge it? It's just crazy.
Yeah, exactly. Like they just slips out sometimes. I can't help it.
Yeah,
but
me too.
This is just, like one of these things that it's like held about, swearing. There's all these silly little things. But what I really find is, there's, like we were saying, there's women that are like, oh God, I really relate to that good girl. And then there's women that's like, I don't relate. And so when I'm working with them women who don't relate, who do see themselves as that rebel, we're still working on the good girl, because basically what tends to be there is a lot of shame. That although they're rebelling in whatever behaviors they think makes them the rebel, there's often shame around that, or shame around not being a certain type of way. And so the good girl conditioning is still there. It's still in you, even if you're not maybe conforming, because why even say that you relate to the rebel? You wouldn't even see that behavior as rebellious, because you wouldn't associate with the good girl,
Yes.
So there's that side of things, working on the shame of not being the good girl. And then there's, if you really do relate to being the good girl, and how suppressive that can feel.
Yeah, God. And you're so right. There is so much shame, I think, around all of it, like I think there is, and that's what keeps women stuck in it, the shame, because they don't want to talk about it. And shame loves that. It loves secrets. It loves that it's hidden and that it's not a conversation that we have. And that's why I think it's so important that we have these conversations, and to work with women like me or you, where we're open about this journey, that you know, we can bring this into the light and we can move through it. I know for so many women I work with, I can see them holding themselves back, you know, seeing them just wanting to like just let that wild woman out, just say that thing, just swear, just, you know, you can see it just like under the surface. And I'd really like to know, you know, I know you said, I know obviously on a podcast, we can't solve all the problems. It's like impossible. And it is so layered because you literally, I know for me, I would find something and then there was something else underneath that and then something else underneath that.
Yeah.
But that really is the process, isn't it? You know, you need to start peeling back the layers.
Yeah. So like guidance on where to begin with this. If you're like, oh my God, yes, I am the good girl. I feel so suppressed. I want to start letting these parts of me out. Maybe it's using my voice to really speaking my truth. Maybe it's like, stop faking orgasms, you know?
Yes.
And even coming down to things like that, because that's a good girl. Oh no, I'll say that I'm satisfied, I'm fine, you know, it's all good. Having sex when you don't want to. Yeah, okay, then I'll just say yes, don't want to rock the boat, you know. It can be as detailed as these things.
It does. It
Wherever...
shows up everywhere, you know, everywhere. And that's what we were saying in relationships, it runs rampant, like, because I mean, that's what our partners do. They literally mirror and reflect what we don't want to take ownership of. You know, it's like, here we go. This is your opportunity. This is your opportunity. This is the challenge for you to grow through. And then it's like, am I going to lean into it? And like you said, am I going to say no when I mean no? Or am I going to just fall into that good girl, you know?
And so something that that I do with my clients, of course, there's some work to uncover there and explore, but something you can do right now with this awareness of, oh God, yeah, I really relate to this is, well, two things. One thing is like this process of leaning in slowly. So don't push yourself to a point that's so unsafe, a conversation or a way in which using your voice, which feels absolutely terrifying. Don't start there. Choose something smaller to use your voice around if it is using your voice, you know, not the big thing, not the scary thing. Choose something else because your nervous system is going to freak out because you're not practiced in using your voice. So if you just go with the biggest, scariest thing, it's going to feel too much, and no wonder you can't get your words out. So if sex, for example, feels too confronting to start with that because it's a charged topic, right?
Yeah.
If that feels too much, what other area can you start to use your voice in? And so you edge in that way. You lean in, you practice, and then you celebrate yourself after you've done it, because what is usually lacking is the acknowledgement on the times that you do it. And so it's really, that's probably the most important step, to really acknowledge, even if it was saying to a friend who suggested you go somewhere for dinner, maybe you're really healthy eating, you didn't want to go there, you know what, no, I'm really like focused on this right now and I'd really like to go here instead. Is that okay? Or how do you feel about that? You know, it could just be a situation if you're not used to speaking your needs like that. And so do it and then celebrate yourself. If it's with the masculine or just in your relationship that you struggle with using your voice, use it outside of your voice, celebrate, and then start to use it in. So that's probably the first one, I'd say.
Yeah, beautiful. I love
that. And then the second one is to stay self-aware, because obviously awareness is how we can create change. We forget, we set intentions for the day and then the day gets on top of us and we just, you know, we've reached the end of the day and we're like, what did I say I was meant to do today? Oh yeah, that didn't happen. And so I love alarms. I love to get clients to set alarms. So set yourself a little challenge, 5 days or 3 days, not less than that, and set 5 alarms throughout the day. And whenever that alarm goes off on your phone, you don't snooze, you don't ignore it because you're with people, you can tell people, and you literally ask yourself, since my alarm went off previous to this, where have I betrayed myself in order to show up as the good girl, or have I? And if I have, how can I re-empower myself now? And if you haven't, again, celebrate yourself, because there's often things that you can do to re-empower yourself once you've checked in. I had a client who was really struggling at work with her bosses or any like person that was a senior figure of authority, basically, and they came over and they sort of bad-mouthed one of her team, and she stood there and was like, oh, even though it really didn't sit well with her. And then she walked off, and her alarm went off like 20 minutes later, and she was like, I can't believe I did that. And so she actually went back, knocked on his door and said, look, I just want to talk to you about something, and re-empowered herself by just speaking her truth.
Yeah.
So we can go back and we can do these things.
Yes. Oh, goosebumps. I love that. We can always clean up. You're right. We can go back. We can, get back in ourselves. And it comes back to, for me, staying in integrity with who you are.
Yeah.
Like that, I think and this is what happens when we fall back into playing small or the good girl or whatever it is, where we're out of integrity with who we really are. And that, when you feel that, I have not met somebody who can like see that and then feel nothing. Any woman that you bring that to their attention, they feel it and they're like, oh, I've neglected myself. I've betrayed my own soul. Like I've chosen them over me. And I think that's such a powerful reminder that even when you do make that choice and you choose someone else in that moment, you can go back, like you said, and then you can choose yourself. And I know when I was in this good girl thing, I was like, oh, I'm going to lose friends, and, had all these stories of all the things I would lose. But honestly, I know in my experience, I gained so much. Like I was like
I relate so much.
Yeah, I was like self-destructing, like trying to please everybody else. I was like imploding from the inside out. It got to that point where I physically just couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't keep leaving myself for other people. And it's just such a short-lived dopamine hit, basically, when you do that. Whereas when you choose yourself, it's like a lasting, loving, sustainable, like endorphin. Like, you can actually live off that more so than all these little hits of, that external validation. I think that external validation is just, it's a killer. And if you've got some perfectionism in you and people pleasing, it just, I know for me and for a lot of clients I worked with, it really does, it starts to control you.
Yeah, it broke me. The pressure to conform to being the good girl, and all the ways in which I was not the good girl, all the mistakes I'd made, all of these things about me that then I held shame around, it absolutely broke me. It depleted me. And we don't want to wait to that point. And if it gets to that point, there's still something you can do. But it's sad that it should, and it does.
Yeah, it does. And it does for so many of us. Unfortunately, for so many of us, it's like we have to break to remake ourselves. But I'm always, and I'm sure you'd be the same, that every breakdown, there is a breakthrough. So it's never lost. It's that whole like burn to the ashes and then the phoenix rises. Like there's always gold that comes out of it. But I agree with you. Like the sooner we can acknowledge it, and like you said, I love those tools, have the awareness and just edge in. Like I think this is exactly what you said. That's what stops people. And it is too much for your nervous system for a lot of people to just throw yourself in the deep end. Some of us love that. That's awesome. That's great for you, but it's not for everybody. And that gentle persistence or edging in or slowly leaning in, all of those ways are just as effective. And I've used probably, a mix of both throughout my own journey, depending on, where I've been in the season of my life. So I just absolutely love that so much. So powerful. I'd love to talk about more about using your voice and how to feel a bit more confident with using your voice. I think I don't struggle with this. I don't know if you can tell, but I love to use my voice. I was definitely shamed throughout my life. And like, you can probably relate, like, oh, she's too much, and she speaks a lot. And I did have wounding around that, which I needed to heal. But I know I've found, and you've probably found the same, there's either women who are very confident speaking and love talking, or but have often been made to feel too much because of it, Or on the other side, there's women who really hold back and suppress their voice, and their throat chakra is just like so blocked, and their jaws are like so stiff, like their body is physically showing that they are so suppressed, and they feel so not enough. So I've found there's kind of, again, both sides. Like you said, it's really the same coin, but both sides that kind of show up around that expression and, using your voice. It's just like, it's such a big piece in confidence. So I think it's so important that we learn to activate our voice.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's one of my favorite things to work with, and it's because of my personal journey with it. So I am very much like what you say about yourself. Like, I relate to the too much camp. We're too much or we're not enough, aren't we? That's always it. I got a bit too much of this or not enough that. And for me, with speaking and just taking up space, I suppose, I'd be more like, oh God, am I taking up a bit too much space? Am I saying a bit too much? Because I'm allowed to use my voice a lot. However, not now, but in the past, when it came to romantic relationship, that was a totally different dynamic for me. And so a lot of my healing work, not all of it, has been heavily focused on that, and why I shut down and changed when it came to romantic relationship, when in every other area of my life, using my voice was not a problem, really. And I see this a lot with women. Like, they have a certain area of their life, not always, sometimes people struggle in all areas, but there's a certain area, maybe it's relationships as well, maybe it's with other women, that they really struggle with. So for me, that looked like staying in very, very toxic relationships and just never voicing my needs, and then not leaving. That looked like settling in relationship, because I just was like, well, I can't use my voice to speak, so this just means that this is what I need to put up with. And it just really disempowers you. So I did a lot of work to uncover what was actually there for me. Like, why do I struggle so much? And that's when I dived deep into like my inner child and uncovered all of these wounds and these fears of rejection, of not being wanted and stuff. And so I realized why. If a man, when I was single, came and asked for my number on the street, I couldn't even say the words no. Like, I'd try and say maybe, or try and say something that avoided the word no, because it was like I couldn't say the word no to a man. I couldn't say anything that I really thought to a man. And I was like, what is this?
Yeah. Wow. And the mother wound and the father wounds, they run like so deeply, and they do show up in relationships. I've seen that with lots of clients, how it just kind of recreates itself based on what you experienced as a child. So I loved that you brought that in. I'm sure we'll end up diving into that a bit as well. The bits of, because there is so much stuff from childhood, like, it literally shapes our identity. It shapes us. Like, it's not confusing. This is what I say. Like, when you start to do this work, it's not confusing how we become who we become. When you actually start to do the work, you're like, well, that makes sense. Like, that's where that came from. And I don't know how you share it, but for me, I found it really empowering to realize they are just patterns. That was just patterns of behavior or programming of behavior that was downloaded into me. That's not who I am, and when when you do this work, you start to reconnect and realize, of course, like you realized, if I can use my voice in all these other areas, of course I can use it in my relationship, so what's blocking me from thinking that it's any different? And it does come back to those childhood wounds. It's unbelievable. And now that I'm a parent, I'm like hyper aware of that. And it actually makes it so much harder, because I tend to like kind of look at every way I engage with my kids and what I speak over them. And I'm really conscious of it. Because I really don't want to pass on those same conditions and patterns. And I'm not perfect, so I'm sure I'll pass on different things. But I'm just hopeful that I don't pass on the same. I want to do my healing work so that I don't pass on that to them. because then they'll have to heal it. You know, it just goes down the line.
Yeah, like generationally, we're breaking patterns. Like we're doing the work. So of course, kids are always going to have some needs. We can't meet every single need that these little humans will have.
Yeah.
However, when we're showing up and doing the work to break these big generational patterns that you see in your grandma, that you see in your mum or whoever, like they have no awareness often of these things. And so, you know, that always pays off. We can't be perfect. We can't meet every single need, but just doing that is enough. And I just think we need to acknowledge ourselves more rather than be like, oh, but I've still got this little thing, or what about that? Just really acknowledge, even taking the time to like be self-aware, do some work on yourself. Like it's just absolutely massive, because it changes people's lives, not just your own, right?
Oh, 100%. It changes all relationships, you know, because it changes how you relate to yourself, which is just incredible. And that's reflected everywhere. So, for me, I'm like, it's the real work we're here to do. Everything else is a distraction. So, you know, I really think it is the real work, which is amazing. I'd love to, if you will share a bit how you kind of transitioned from not using your voice, and I'm sure you did lots of different things, to what kind of helped you. What's, you know, one or two things that really helped you to then start to use your voice? Because I know this can be hard for some women. They know they need to start using their voice. And like we said, you can edge in and lean in. That's a great start. But sometimes they're still like, okay, but how? But like, how do I say what I want to say? Like what you said, that you wanted to say no, but you couldn't, you know?
Yeah, it just won't come out. So, you know, maybe you know what you want to say, and that's a great starting point, because there are people that don't maybe know what their needs even are.
Yes.
So we start there. We start on what do you even want to say? Some people don't know that. So if you don't know that, that's okay. Work that out first. Don't worry about communicating it until you know. And if you do know, great. Celebrate the fact that you know what you want, which is amazing. You know what is a yes to you and what's a no to you. Okay, so then you need to say it, or you need to say the thing. Some different things, and these are just little tips and tricks, guys, because I believe we truly do need to work with that wounded child that's showing up when you're having the conversation. Because when you go to have the conversation to whoever it is, or say no, I believe it's not the woman showing up in that moment. I believe it is the wounded child. So I'll give you these tips and I'll give you these tools, but to be honest, that work, I believe, is work that needs to be done. So the things that you can do now, because obviously you can't go back and uncover all of that the second you finish listening to this podcast, but what you can do is practice with you. So actually thinking something and then speaking it into existence is a whole different matter, right? Because words carry charge, and some words carry more charge for you than they do for others. For some people, no is easy. For you, you've got all this charge on the word no, or whatever it might be. And so you get to practice. I speak into the herpes virus a lot because I test positive for this virus, and for a long time I couldn't say the word, let alone communicate it to potential partners. And so that was absolutely massive for me. So I had a lot of work to do on being able to have these courageous and vulnerable conversations so I could date, and so I could speak to partners about, potential partners about it. Well, how could I do that if I couldn't even say the word herpes? So I really know how it feels, because I couldn't spit it out. And so what I did was I worked on that charge around that word and why it was there. But then I practice in the mirror. So you can practice in the mirror, because when you're looking in your own eyes, and this is where you want to be looking, it's so powerful, and it can be really emotional, but it can really help you, to literally just do it with you. Just really meet yourself, eye gaze yourself, connect with yourself. As you do this, take some big, deep grounding breaths and just flow with it. And don't do it from your head. This isn't about planning what you're going to say. It's about, you can put one hand on your heart if you want to tap into your heart to share, or if it's more of a case you want to tap into your power and your strength to share, then I'd say two hands on your belly as you're practicing. Because when we're sharing, it depends our approach, but are we the strong person that needs to soften in communication? Or are we the soft person that needs a bit more strength? So where are you at? What do you need to do? And practice your approach. For me, the work was coming into my heart space and trying to share from my heart and not my head. And so that's what I practiced. So yeah, you can get in front of the mirror to say if there's any words or topics that are hard for you. And it's not with a script, it's just hands on heart or hands on belly in your strength, because this is your will in your belly. And practice there is, I would say, first step.
Yes. Oh, that feels so powerful. And I can really relate. And I can feel like you said, it will be women on either side. For me, I was the strong woman, and I am always putting my hand on my heart because it always helps me to soften. And when I breathe into my heart, it helps me to soften, to open, to be vulnerable, to let myself be seen and not have to be strong all the time. I was sharing with a woman the other day that you can be strong and not okay.
Yeah, exactly.
100%, and the other way around, you can be not okay and strong. All of it, like we said in the beginning, all of it coexists.
Yeah.
All of it is welcome. We are actually all of it. Like, we all have a rebel. We all have a good girl. Like, we all have all of it. It's crazy that we're trying to hide behind these facades because it's just easier for our mind to understand when we're just so much more than that. And that's true for all of us.
Exactly. So self-awareness will just take you so far. It's not everything. Then we've got to do the next step, like you're saying. There's having the awareness, and then there's actually saying the thing. But having that awareness is going to support you to use it better, use your voice better. Yes. Another thing I'd say is, just when it comes to using your voice, I think so many people don't do it because, well, two things. One, perfectionism, and one, sitting in the discomfort that can follow. So the perfectionism piece, I would say that you're practicing and you're learning to do something new. If you're not used to using your voice, this is a new thing for you. Do not expect these conversations to go perfectly. If I think of my first herpes disclosures to partners, God, they were definitely far from what I envisioned I would show up and do it like. But you know what? I did it. So just show up, just use it. And regardless of if it all comes out in a big jumbled mess and not how you thought it would go beforehand, who cares? The more you use your voice, the better you will get at using it. And the only way to get good at using it is to practice using it. So don't wait for the fear to go, because it's never going to go. It is going to require you to lean in and be a bit scared and do it. And whatever comes out, just celebrate that it's out there.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. And then the other thing that is quite common is you're going to ruffle some feathers if you're not used to using your voice. People don't expect it from you. They're not going to all be cool with it in the beginning because they're not used to it. That doesn't mean they're not going to be cool in time, and that doesn't mean that because it didn't go great you shouldn't have done it. So it's about learning to sit in the discomfort of potentially upsetting somebody. It's okay. And to try and fix the situation and change that is to change their process and their emotional experience. And so if you want your emotional experience to be validated by someone, you just need to validate theirs. They'll come, and you don't need to agree on everything. So it's like, learn in that discomfort that might follow if things have if shit has hit the fan, as I like to say. Just regulate yourself. What can you do to come into yourself, coming out of heads and all of the thoughts and the stories you're creating, and just coming into body, coming into safety? Breathe, literally.
Yes, literally breathe. I feel like that is the answer. Exactly what you said. For me, I'm always like, get my hand on my heart, breathe into my body. I have to close down my eyes, cut off from all of the external stuff and just go within. And that really is where the safety is. It's crazy. Once you learn that safety is within you and that your breath can take you there, I think it's so powerful. And it's crazy that so many of us are just kind of learning that now. So crazy.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're always looking for safety outside of ourselves, and actually it's in here. But a lot of people feel unsafe in their own bodies because they haven't understood how they can reach that place. But like you say, once you do, it's actually really simple. Really
Yes.
simple.
Yeah. And I think it's the simple things that are the most powerful, honestly. I think you've got to come back to those simple practices that you can integrate, that because like you said, life is busy, stuff happens. We need to have simple practices that we can integrate. But it is about practice. It's exactly practicing the practice. And I know so many people want to skip over that, but it's the whole journey. The whole journey is in the practicing. And I 100% agree that it's never perfect. And you really have to, I think, break up with perfection. And, for me, I needed to realize like I had a choice. It's either perfection or authenticity. I can't have both.
Exactly.
Which one are we going with?
What do we choose? Yeah.
What do we choose? And for me, it was like, well, perfect is draining, exhausting. It's killing me, literally. It's no fun at all.
Not working.
Not even working. Wasn't even getting what I wanted. I was like, this is crazy. This is meant to work. It wasn't working. And it rarely works for anybody, especially sustainably for a long period of time. And so, yeah, for me, it was like, make that choice for authenticity. And it means being real with yourself, and real with each other and real with other people. And real is messy. It is messy. It's not perfect. It's not scripted. And the amount of conversations I've had, like on my journey with my husband, where I've had to say something vulnerably and it's come out so awkward. And I've just fully owned it and been like, I'm just going through this at the moment and it's really awkward. And I'm just sharing with you that this is me learning vulnerability. And I remember I was received with so much love. When I validated myself that this is just me learning vulnerability and so just letting you know that's why it's awkward. He was like, wow, babe, like he just wanted to love on me, because it was just so real and open and messy because that's what humans are.
I'm so with you. You don't need to put the front on and act confident to have these conversations. Where we're in the same boat here, the way we share. And I know not everybody is. I know some people, it's the whole fake it till you make it. And but I believe authenticity and vulnerability isn't about that, right? It's about actually saying, you know what, this is really uncomfortable for me to share. And so I am going to spit this out for the woman who can't get it out. I am going to spit this out. Give me a minute. Take some big, deep, clearing breaths. Don't give a fuck that they're right there watching you in this process. Let them hold you in this process. And people will meet you there. So often. Not always, but very, very often.
And what I've found, actually, it's really interesting with that. Even if they don't meet me, I've met myself. Like you said, with the eye gazing, it's this powerful moment where you realize I've stayed in integrity with myself. I've met myself
of the outside. I'm in integrity, and that always feels better.
Yes. And then anything else is just a bonus. Kind of, I like to see it like the icing on the cake, and then I think it removes that pressure and that expectation, especially in a relationship sense, because like you said, we're all having our own experience and our own journey and our own emotional stuff. We've all got our own childhood wounds that we're working through and we're bringing to our relationships. This is what I often say. It's like we're giant toddlers, really, having tantrums from all the wounding, all the needs that weren't met, all the conditioning. And then we wonder why after a few years our relationships become hard. I'm like, it's not surprising, with all of that baggage that we bring, and some of us have never even opened that baggage. It's it's not surprising that we come up against challenges that we then need to work through, which I really believe are gifts. I haven't met anyone who hasn't gone through a challenge, whether it's in their relationship or life, personal, whatever. Those challenges are there. They come in different vehicles for all of us.
Yeah, it's like part of the human experience. And when we get into that mentality, it's like, oh, okay, this is me being a good human.
Yeah, exactly. I love that. This is me being a good human. I'm not a bad person. Yeah.
Perfectly functioning human, having all of these challenges, not actually I'm imperfect and I'm broken. This actually means you're a perfectly functioning human being.
Yes, I love that. Oh, I absolutely love that. There is like so much. I feel like I could speak to you forever. I feel like we're like soul sisters.
I'm loving it.
I know, me too. But I really would like to dive in a little bit before we end on understanding your inner child a bit more. We've been talking a little bit about it, and like you, I think it's massive. I think it's huge work, and obviously in the last few minutes of a podcast. We're not going to cover it all, but I do think it's something that everybody needs to look at.
Yeah, I agree. So I would say, if you're somebody out there who's like, what even is this? When we say inner child, like, what does that mean? Have you got a baby? Are you pregnant? Like, what is going on? No, I'm not. But my inner child is my past me, and it's the same for you. So some people focus very heavily on like 0 to sort of 8 years old. I do inner child work from 0 to 21 because I believe we're not a woman until that point. And so what we're saying with this concept is that all these past versions of you at 5, you at 8, you at 15, you at 19, they're not just in the past, they live on inside of you, in your psyche. And so these different versions of you, things happened at different times of your upbringing in your life. And in them moments, different wounds were created. You had needs, they weren't met. Maybe you've forgotten all about those as an adult. You've got no recollection, but these things happen. And so they live on within us. And when we don't have awareness, do the work around to heal those things and to meet those needs, they show up, and they especially show up in relationship. So what happens if you don't do this work, as I know from personal experience and a string of really bad relationships, was that instead of showing up as the woman that you know yourself to be at times, you show up as this wounded child. You show up as, I was showing up as the wounded 5-year-old who felt really rejected and unwanted because I stopped seeing my dad. I then would show up as the insecure teenager sometimes, who all the boys fancied my best friend, you know? And so I would plaster on the makeup and I would do anything to be seen. And so I was rocking up in my adult life as that insecure teen and that really fearful, wounded little girl. And that would affect the way I communicated. That would affect how anxious I felt if I hadn't heard back from someone. That would affect how, just everything. So we want to create awareness around childhood and what went on that might affect how you feel now in relationship, especially. And something that can be just so powerful is to just start to notice something you can do right now in your day-to-day life and in your relationship, especially, how this inner child might show up. So I'll give you an example. It's childlike behavior. When do you act like a child? Something called protest behavior is quite common, which is like, say you have some conflict with your partner and you're not desiring it. Deep down, you actually really just want to cuddle and make up, but you don't go and you don't say that and ask and request for that cuddle. What you do is you slam the door and you storm off into the other room. And actually, deep down, you really hope he's going to come through the door and wrap his arms around you. But that doesn't happen, right? If we have awareness that, oh, I'm stuck in this protest behavior right now, I'm not messaging back, or I'm being frosty and whatever it might be, whatever you're doing, we can say, do you know what? Is that what I really want? Is that what would the woman do right now? So the work is really about becoming the woman, becoming the parent to this insecure teen, becoming the parent to this little girl who's throwing her toys at the pram. My dad never gave me attention. He never played with me. And so protest behavior was my favorite. Give me attention. And so for me, what it would look like if I noticed myself in those patterns, I literally have childhood photos everywhere, and I will speak to them and I will say to little me in the moment, it's okay. I am here for you. I'm here to give you all the love that you need. And it's safe for me, the adult, to go and ask for this love. You might not have felt safe to ask for that love from your dad, but I'm the woman and I'm going to do this for us. I'm going to go and ask for what it is we're truly desiring, that cuddle right now. I know you can't do it, little girl, and you don't have to, but I am going to. I'm going to show up as the woman.
Yes. Oh, I love that. And I can relate so much. I, for a long time, had photos of myself at different ages in my purse.
Yes,
so
this is what I've done.
So she was always with me, and I talk to her all the time, and I do like I breathe into my body, like connect into her, feel her in my nervous system. And I know when she's there. And I know, like you said, I know that the answer is that she just needs a need met. She needs to know that what happened back then is not going to happen again. That rejection or that abandonment or whatever, this is not the same scenario. And it really is, like you said, it's reparenting, like letting that little girl, whatever age it is, and it will be different ages for everybody, where these different events or traumas or wounds happen. And it really is about like how we talked in the beginning about taking your power back and giving yourself what you needed in that moment. And, you know, we all would have loved to have that from our parents. Like everyone, you know, if we could go back, I'm sure our parents wish that they could turn the clock back. I'm sure many of them do. But that isn't an option. But what is an option is to reparent, is to acknowledge it, validate it. And then I love how you said, I was getting goosebumps. I call it like the worthy woman, like recreate that identity of the worthy woman, you know, and let her guide you, let her lead you, because she knows that you can do those things.
Yeah,
you know,
that
from
part's
that.
even within all of us. Like we can all find that part, apart from when the child is noisy, we can all find that part that you call the worthy woman. I love that, because that is within all of us, and she's always there. You just maybe have a little child that needs a bit of looking after to get there.
Yes. And you're so right. It's always there. I call it, it's like your true north. You know, it's the real validation, the internal validation, that internal light that really does want to guide you. But you're so right. You need to listen to those little girl voices, those teenage voices, honor them, feel them. I know I've written to mine before, like I've journaled to them. You know, one with my dominant hand, I've written to my little girl, and then my non-dominant hand, like get her message through. You know, that's another powerful way that you can do it. And I think everybody should be taking the time to do this, because that protesting behavior, we see it everywhere. And I see it a lot in relationships. I've been there too, so no judgment at all. But that's what it is, that it's just that little girl protesting, see me, hear me. You know, so like, I think it's something ridiculous, like 95% of us feel misunderstood. And I'm like,
not surprised. Yeah.
Not surprised at all, because most of our like childhood was like that, you know? And it's like, okay, so how do we, and I know for a lot of women, they're like, if everyone just understood me, I'm like, understand yourself. Exactly what we've talked about. Understand yourself, have the awareness of yourself, you know, reconnect to yourself and all those parts of yourself, validate yourself. And you'll realize that, I know on my journey, I remember driving in the car one day realizing I don't need them to understand me anymore. What the
breakthrough?
Yeah. I was like, I don't need that anymore. This is crazy, you know? And then ironically, I felt more understood by others. It's mind blowing, absolutely mind blowing. It's it's all internal, isn't it? And we know that, but it still blows my mind how internal it really is.
Yeah, exactly. When we're projecting out at everybody else, it just comes back down to us, really, just down to us.
Yeah, and it can be empowering. I know that can be a hard pill to swallow, because I've been like, oh, it's me. But but at the same time, it's like, it's so empowering to realize it's you, and this is how you take your power back. So, oh my gosh, I've absolutely loved this chat so much. I know so many of the ladies listening are going to get so much from this. I'm going to put beautiful Kady's links down below. You want to go and check out this empowerment queen. Honestly, love her work, love her vibe, love her energy. I'm going to put all those links there so you can check it out. Kady does breath work as well. I'm super excited to have a breathwork session with you. And I know you do them online as well, like one-to-one. Yep. Yes. So definitely, if you are looking into breathwork, I highly recommend this beautiful woman. And I just honestly think breathwork is so powerful to help us get out of our head, get into our body. You know, a lot of what we've been talking about today really is a lot to do with breathwork, and the breath can really guide you there. So thank you so much for being here, beautiful woman, and sharing your energy and honestly all of your gold. I really appreciate it so much.
Thank you. I could talk to you all day. I'm smiling like this. My mouth's just up here by my ears. But yeah, it's been absolutely incredible. I have loved it. Thank you.